No, you don't need to send me a picture. You need to work on it, ask questions. Tomorrow I'll have the answers up. Make sure you can get the answers if you don't understand them. I'm just listing the topics that we covered. So it's also going to include slope intercept form. Nope, don't need to submit it. You can do it on whatever kind of paper you want. -5 or scatter plots. That was fun. Know what correlation is. -6 is. We really skip that. -7 is system equations solved by graphing and solved by substitution. I did not do inequalities. Yep, that's what it's on. Not really that difficult stuff except for the system of equations stuff. It's not looking too bad. So yeah, I guess I'll start. This is what you need to know for Chapter 8 test. Your test is Monday. Okay, so for Section 8.1, relation versus function, know the difference. This also involves, I guess, your vertical line test, which is pretty simple. Right. So know the difference between a relation and a function, what a function is, know your notations for functions. So know that f of x, know what a domain is, know what a range is, those things. It's definition stuff. I would read over your notes or honestly have your notes out while you do it. Equations with two variables. So this goes into graphing linear equations. So if I give you the equation f of x equals like 3x plus 2, you know this here is your slope, this here is your y-intercept. If I give you the point, or if I give you the x equals 5, you can tell me what the y equals, that kind of thing. No, you're not submitting it. Just do it. This is one of those honor system things. Are you an honorable person and will actually take the effort to do what is required to learn, or are you going to sit there and not do it? I mean, the other way to look at it, if you're sitting there thinking, hey, I know how to do these things, you can skip them. That's the other reason I did that. But I mean, I want you to actually take the time to look at it, to study. The way you study math is by doing math problems. That's how you do it. So here's a set of math problems to help you study. If you're sitting there thinking, hey, this is a waste of time, I know how to do this, then you probably don't have to do it. And therefore, why waste your time? But if you're confused on it, not sure if you're getting the right answer or not, it's not making sense to you, then you should be asking questions and you should be practicing them. We are not doing inequalities on this chapter. I did not have you do inequalities. They're pretty simple, but we're just not doing it. So keep that in mind. Know how to graph things. So again, can you graph from points, and can you graph from a point and slope? Given tables, can you give me the function? Giving the graph, can you give me the function? Make sure you know slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. You realize that, hey, that's a line. Scatter plots, there's probably not going to be much on the test about scatter plots, but I mean, you should know what correlation is. I might give you, hey, these two variables have this kind of correlation. This one, can you describe what this correlation means? And we did that with our scatter plot lab. If you recall, correlation is going to be between -1 and 1. So like that, and the closer you are to 0, the weaker your correlation. So correlation closer to 0 equals weaker correlation. And correlation is just saying if there's a relationship between, is one variable affecting the other in some way. It does not show causation, so it does not say, hey, this causes that, right? The biggest common misconception is like smoking. Does smoking cause cancer? Well, the answer is no, it doesn't, because we can't prove that. There's a correlation between smoking and cancer, but we can't say that if you smoke, you're going to get cancer, because people can smoke their whole life and never get cancer, and people can still get cancer even though they don't smoke. So there really is no causation there, but there's a correlation. So that's a good example of the difference between that. System of equations, that's what we did all of last 4 days pretty much. Make sure you can solve by graphing. You know where they intersect. So this is graph the lines and where they intersect. Remember that you can have no solution to system of equations. So this could be none, because they might not intersect. Know that this could be one solution, because they could intersect at 1 point. This could be an infinite amount of solutions if they are the same line. Okay, so they might just be written differently, but it's the same line. Like if you have y minus 5 equals 3x, and you have y equals 3x plus 5. These are the same line, right? If I just add 5 to this side and add 5 to that side, it goes into this. These will have an infinite number of solutions. But yeah, work through it. Any questions? I'll hang on for a little bit. Tomorrow I will give you the answers to all of them. Again, things you can skip. Again, well, here, for the review, do not turn in. It is for your help and your help only. You can skip inequalities. I mean, unless you really want to do it. But we didn't go over inequalities. The main reason I didn't do that is, one, there's not really much of a difference between graphing a line and an inequality, and two, in order for you to show me your work, you need to actually draw the graph. And then you would just, like, for example, y is greater than or equal to 3x minus 1. Right, here's your slope, there's your y-intercept, so you're at -1, up 3 over 1, that's like 2, like 1. You're like there, so your line's going to go this way. And you graph it just like you normally would. Because it's equal to, it'll be a solid line. And because y is greater, you shade up here. I'm not going to have you draw pictures and send that. Like number 5. Yes, I can. I am going to hide this page. and we can look at ones about graphing. I am probably gonna have to go. I have to go grab a graph probably here. Let me see what I can find. This one looks acceptable. Alright, so if we're graphing something, boom. Here you want number 5. So graph the equation. So let's look at number 5. Graph the equation. It is y equals 2x. Remember the form y equals mx plus b. I'm not going to give you things other than this form for your class. Next year you'll get different forms. But for your class and for this test, it's going to be in this form. Remember, this here is your slope, and this here is your y-intercept. Coming over here, you do not have a b value, which means your y-intercept is 0. Remember, there is a plus 0 at the end of that, and therefore you know your y-intercept is 0. So go ahead and plot your y-intercept on the origin, because you know your y-intercept is 0. Then you need to use your slope to find your next point, and here you have your slope as 2. So remember, slope in this case equals 2, which is rise over run, which is 2 over 1. So this is the fraction 2 over 1 if I wrote the slope as a fraction. This means I'm going to rise up 2 and run 1. Both are in the positive direction. So I'm going to go up 2 positive on the y and over 1 positive on the run, and I'm going to get my next dot. And you can continue doing that until you have as many dots as you want, but you really only need 2. And then once you have your 2, you can get your ruler, and it's going to be tight. My ruler doesn't like to stretch that much, so let's get a few more dots. 1 should be there, and you can draw your line. So that's easy. With 6, don't forget these have arrows. With 6, you do have a y-intercept, so y equals negative x minus 2. So you do have a slope here, and you do have a y-intercept. Here your y-intercept is negative 2, so down 2. You're there. And here your slope is negative 1, because there's a 1 in front of that. So your slope will be negative 1 over 1. And that isn't, one of these is negative. I put the y negative, so I'm going to go down 1 and over 1. Down 1 and over 1, down 1 and over 1. Or you could go up 1 and left 1 on the y. It could be positive on the y, negative on the x. It doesn't matter because you'll see it just looks like that. And you're getting that line coming in. Can I graph an inequality? Yeah, if you want me to graph an inequality, I can. It's just same kind of concept. But you can skip them. I'm not going to be testing you on them. Let me just get rid of this. Get me another graph. So like 17. Apparently we're doing it in blue. So this says y is greater than or equal to 3x minus 1. You're going to treat it just like an equation first. And you're going to get your 2 dots. So we have negative 1 for your y-intercept, and 3x is going to be your 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. That's 2. 3 is up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So I just graphed this like a normal line, like I just did before. When it comes to inequalities, remember this equaled the open circle, and this equaled the dot. If it's that, it's going to be a dashed line. If it's this, it's going to be a solid line. So here we have a solid line between them. which makes sense. I mean, it includes all those points. So I am including all of these points. And then it does say y is greater than. So if it is greater than, it's above. So greater than, if y is greater than whatever your function is, I guess x in this case, right? This side, that's not the greatest thing. If y is greater than, you're going to go up. If y is less than, you're going to go down. And then you're just going to shade it. So you shade it above the line. That's all it is. So here, if y is greater than, you shade above. If y is less than, you shade below. All right. So for 18, it was y is less than negative x plus 5. You'll note that it's not equal to, so it's going to be a dashed line. C plus 5. We'll do this in a different color. Red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be here. And then minus 1, minus 1. You know, down 1, down 1. However, this here is going to be a dashed line, so my ruler is not going to be very good at that. So you have a dashed line here, best you can. And then because it says less than, it gets shaded below. Where's the airbrush? It'll get shaded. It'll get shaded below the line. That's all it is. Get rid of that, go back to black, and do all this. You're going to go over that again next year anyways, so I figured instead of you sending me these horribly drawn graphs over the internet, we'll just spend more time on it next year. But it's really not hard. If you can graph a line, you can graph an inequality. You just got to determine which direction you shade based off of the greater than or less than sign, and whether it's a solid line or a dashed line. Are there any other questions? All right, if you have any questions, you can email me. Tomorrow we're just going to go over this. Make sure you can check your answers off of it. What would you do for 19 through 20? 19 through 22. You solve them by graphing. Graph the two lines and see where they intersect. 19, you have y equals x minus 1 and x equals 2y. This you're probably going to want to turn into Y-intercept form. But honestly, you probably want to solve this through substitution anyways, but it says by graphing. So you can do it by graphing. We'll do it both ways, graphing or substitution. So when it comes to graphing, you get a graph, and you graph your two lines. We're going to go ahead and do them in different colors here. This one's going to be blue. So we have -1. We have slope of +1, so up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. You can just do it once. I'm doing it a few times because my ruler doesn't like connecting dots that are really close to each other. So there's your first line, and we'll do the second one in red. This one is not in Y-intercept form, so you have to rewrite it so it is. In that case, x equals 2y, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, you get x divided by 2 equals y. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as 1/2, so this is 1/2 x equals y. Or if you want to write it the other way, it'll be y equals 1/2 x. You don't have a y-intercept here, so your point is 0, and your slope here is 1/2. Just be aware. Your fraction goes like that. I mean, x over 2 is the same thing as 1x over 2, and then you just get rid of it. Do the division first, and then tack on the variable. So hopefully you can turn that into a fraction. But it is 1/2. That is a rise of 1 and a run of 2, so up 1 over 2. Right there is your intersection point. Up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. And my ruler doesn't like to be in close. So there's this line, and you will note that they intersect right here on that point, which is 2, 1. So this here is their intersection point. That is their solution. You could also have done that by substitution, which is probably, hopefully, easier for you now. But you have y equals x minus 1 and x equals 2y. You're just going to substitute in for x, so y equals 2y minus 1. Go ahead and bring either this y over, so subtract y from here, you get 0 equals y minus 1. Bring this one over, add 1, you get 1 equals y. There's your y value. So plug into one of them to get your x value. Might as well plug into this one, 2 times 1. So x equals 2 times 1 gives you 2. So you get the same answer. This way is nicer for this one, just because I think it's going to be quicker for you. But if you want to sit there and graph them, that's how you graph them. So it's asking to do that. Any other questions? That airbrush is still in there. So many layers. Yeah, so not too difficult. Section 1 is pretty much vocabulary. Section 2 is just kind of like algebra, solving things and realizing what a line looks like as a equation. 3 is slope and intercept, probably the most important of all the sections. But again, just know your equations for slope, know your equation, well, your slope-intercept form to get your intercept. Know what your intercept is. Again, this is where what is y when x equals 0. Know how to go from a table to a graph, or a table to a function. Not really too difficult if you look for common differences. Scatter plots is really just correlation. I'll have a question on correlation on there, and then system of equations. Well, if there's nothing else, there's just one of you watching left, so I'll let you continue working on that. Email me or ask tomorrow if you have questions. And I'll talk to you then. Bye.